So it's safe to say that ownership of the 2024 tennis season and best player in the world on the men's side has kind of flipped on a dime over the last month or so. Because really until the outcome of this year's Wimbledon final, I think it was still pretty consensus that Jannik Sinner had been the best player in the world through the first half of this season. And after a strong grass court lead up, myself included, he was the popular pick for the Wimbledon title this year. But instead, we're sitting here in mid-July with the sentiment of, how quickly things can turn. Because even after his Roland Garros semifinal loss, we went from a borderline all-time great start to a season in Jannik Sinner, and he being the one we were looking at to potentially claim the first non-Big Three multi-slam winning season since Agassi in 1999, to now that wonder kid from Spain snatching that title away from him and actually becoming the first to do so, claiming the Channel Double, the youngest to ever do it. Something that Carlos Alcaraz has been doing since he was like 18 years old, so it feels like at this point we're kind of just numb to the youngest to do X, Y, and Z from Carlos Alcaraz because, well, he's already climbing the all-time ladder at 21 years of age, breezing by a couple of the icons we regard from our golden era of men's tennis in Andy Murray and Stan Wawrinka eclipsing their tally, winning his fourth Grand Slam at Wimbledon. And obviously, it's been a while since the Wimbledon final now, so I want the crux of this video to be more big picture, outlook moving forward type deal. And yeah, that's the question here really at this point is, after that performance in the Wimbledon final, are we looking at a Carlos Alcaraz who might be an unstoppable force in the not so distant future? A year ago, Nike had that whole marketing campaign of, us being in the Alcaraz era. And I know that was slightly controversial at the time, but a year later, 3 of the last 5 slams played have gone to one Carlos Alcaraz. And for the remaining big events this year, you would have to say he's the man to beat at the Olympics in Paris, especially given the announcement today with, Jannik Sinner unable to compete there. And then obviously the US Open on the horizon, where he's already won before. And if he is to conquer that one again, I think, we're officially there. It is the Alcaraz era. And I know as far as tennis discourse, we've seen a lot of this in the whole GOAT debate over the years, where every time a different member of the Big Three would win another slam, the tide would sort of swing in their direction for who's going to end up winning that slam race. Recency bias is very much a thing in tennis discourse. I already started this video talking about how it wasn't that long ago. It was just a couple weeks ago where Jannik Sinner still would have been the consensus pick for best player in the world in 2024. But I think what definitively has swung it into the Alcaraz direction is that finals performance. Because even though Carlos Alcaraz won Roland Garros, and he did it beating Jannik Sinner on the way to doing so, I know I at least had been waiting for the Dynamo Alcaraz performance that kind of takes your breath away. We saw a couple of those, at Indian Wells, but aside from that, his 2024 had been marred by a lot of the things that we saw at the back end of 2023, the focus issues, coupled with health problems. He has not played for large stretches of 2024. That's why you see him with 2 slams and a Masters to his name right now, and he's still number 3 in the world. And you saw him throughout Roland Garros, knocking off the rust as he went to go on to win that title, and he never really hit his apex. And that's something that was really important to me heading into Wimbledon and projecting this tournament. I know I didn't really upload at all on this channel, but, I was traveling and internet issues made things very difficult on that end. I was planning on still uploading, but all I was able to get out was audio on our podcast, The Racket Rundown. Available on Spotify, links in the description below. But on there, I maintained that was a key in why I picked Sinner to win the title, is that I felt like throughout Roland Garros, I was expecting in one of those big matches to get, that wow Alcaraz performance, and it never came. And I think we've all established that, the shot selection focus stuff has always been a thing for him to this point in his career, where he does go through patches of streakiness. But that French Open, he was even streakier than usual. I don't know if it was the conjunction of the rust and all that, but if we did get Alcaraz at his best at all throughout that tournament, it was probably only for like a set or two at a time. And that was the X factor for me. We hadn't seen that apex Carlos Alcaraz in a really long time, aside from probably his favorite conditions on tour in Indian Wells. And on grass, I kind of just got the feeling that I felt like Sinner off his apex would have a greater margin for error than Alcaraz did. In spite of, the masterclass of competing and staying the course that he put forth throughout Roland Garros, winning there without his best, but just with his power, I felt like, Sinner, there was a lower gap between, an average level for him and his apex when compared to the same for Alcaraz. Now, I did have the caveat that apex for Alcaraz, I felt this way since really the loss in Cincinnati last year, obviously in conjunction with beating, still, albeit 36-year-old, but goes without saying, super tough to beat Novak Djokovic last year, playing Novak Djokovic in the Wimbledon final. But I think it was most telling in the Cincinnati final that it took Djokovic's, I think, far and away the most he's wanted a best-of-3 match in a really long time, a motivated Novak, off that aforementioned Wimbledon loss, and still it took him emptying the bucket pretty much. You saw at the end what it meant to him, why it is such a momentous result. It will be such a momentous as a result. It will probably age phenomenally that Djokovic was able to get over the line, but he barely hung on by the skin of his teeth against an Alcaraz who struggled all week, played all three setters on his way to the final, and still, if he didn't blink for a split second, he very well could have won that match in straight sets. And at that time, obviously, it was still Novak at the top, but this goes for everybody else. I thought moving forward after that match, it was only going to get harder for Novak and the rest of the field to keep pace with a well-playing Alcaraz. I think Alcaraz's best level is the best on tour, in my estimation, on any non-Australian Open or slick indoor hardcourt. And to be honest, even through week one of Wimbledon, I thought that Alcaraz's level was being underestimated. I know it was a very close shave with Tiafoe, 4-all, love 30, fourth set, needed to play an excellent tiebreaker to keep his title defense alive, and he did exactly that. It's main character energy that he exudes at this point. But, as early as round 2, I was just like, this guy just looks like such a natural on grass. It's crazy. We've talked about it ad nauseum last year, third tournament on grass in his career, and he went on to win the thing. Second and third with Queens and Wimbledon, goes on to win the thing. But, throughout this run, fourth round against Hugo Humbert, I don't think Alcaraz was in trouble in that match because he was playing poorly. I think he was in trouble in that match because Hugo Humbert peaked out of his mind. I think that's easily the best match I've ever seen Hugo Humbert play in his slam career, at least. I thought Carlos did really, really well to get out of the match in 4 sets. A match where you could honestly argue that Humbert had the better of play for the last 3 sets. Through long portions of that match in the last 3 sets, it seemed like anything Humbert touched was turning to gold. I was really impressed by him coming through there, being able to hold off that barrage enough to still win in 4. After watching that match, I didn't have any questions for whether he was ready to make a legitimate stand at defending his title. I know that for, most of his next 2 rounds with Paul in the quarterfinals, Medvedev in the semis, it seemed like he was on a little bit of cruise control. But what does it say about how good you are on grass But what does it say about how good you are in these conditions, in general, really, as far as it pertains to Carlos Alcaraz, but on the surface in these conditions, that you're able to sort of routine 2 competent, certainly in-form grass court players, Tommy Paul, the Queen's champ, Medvedev off his best win of the year by far. And, it's been a while. We don't have to go that deep into detail about the final. But it goes without saying that Carlos Alcaraz stamped the reminder of what an Apex Alcaraz looks like to this point. Far and away, his cleanest slam final performance from start to finish. There was only really the one blip for him, even though I guess he didn't start, top tier in the first game if we're just nitpicking. But other than that, after breaking anyways in that first game, there was only the one lapse, and it came up 5-4, 40 love, 2 sets to love. Other than that, the kid did not put a single foot wrong, and that's why we're having the conversations we are now, is because the caliber of that Wimbledon final performance was so terrific. Obviously, Djokovic seemed like his draw up to the final, it didn't have him ready to face, the giant leap in caliber of competition he was facing from pre-final to the final and how Alcaraz played. Also, of course, not completely recovered from the torn meniscus and surgery, but the performance in the final was so thorough and so lopsided that, there's not really a case to be made that it's like he got lucky or, if Djokovic was healthy, it would have been enough to swing the outcome that drastically. Carlos Alcaraz really was that good in every phase, whether it was, planting the seed of doubt very early on in Djokovic's head up at net just because he had to be so wary of the speed from Alcaraz when he was on defense. And then on the flip side, every phase of the offense was clicking as well. A couple of just obscene half-volley pickups from Alcaraz in this match, making every right call on when to, shelve the drop shot and blast the forehand and vice versa. And, I know a lot of people pointed this out, and it's been so obvious so early in his career that Alcaraz is made of the right stuff mentally. But perhaps the most impressive part of, his final performance was stepping up to the line at 5-6 after having squandered those 3 match points at 5-4 in the manner that he did, to appear at least completely unfazed after that. It feels like, the majority of guys, there is some mental residue there. It's not at all easy to shake off. How many times have you seen Djokovic make those stands and his opponents intimidated by that, sort of feeling the footsteps of Djokovic walking them down? There's none of that from Carlos Alcaraz. I think he held to love at 5-6, as cool as you like, and we know Djokovic's reputation these last couple years in tiebreakers, but it just didn't matter. The superior player on the day won, and lo and behold, you got the glimpse at Apex Alcaraz, the reminder. I think myself and others walked away from Roland Garros, with the impression that, look at what he did. He won a Grand Slam against as good a competition as there is to offer on tour, at least this year, and he did it being a good ways off his best. We know how much better he can play, and when he does, you get the impression that that is the best peak that there is to offer on tour right now. Now, there is an element to, his game is more high risk, I think it's fair to say, than all of those upper echelon guys. For us who watch the big three at their best, it might be weird to see a guy like this not be able to bring his A-level game as often as you'd like compared to those guys. But obviously, keep in mind, the guy's 21. He has not hit his prime yet. And even if he has, if you think there's not much room to improve, just taking Alcaraz as he is right now and ironing out some of the shot selection stuff, just getting better at really knowing when to rein it in, that alone could do just that. And take him to a place where he's able to access his best stuff with more frequency, more regularity. And albeit, after the Olympics, we will be headed back to, quicker hard courts where you'd have to say Sinner, it's more of an equalizer despite this Alcaraz momentum, brings it more at even footing. But again, it's not like Alcaraz hasn't succeeded in these conditions before. And bigger picture, the scary part is that he's gone through these patches of the year where he has been hurt, he's missed time, and even when he was on court at the beginning of the year, he was not playing very well up until Indian Wells. And so, coming into Roland Garros, what would have been considered maybe his worst year since he broke through, and a disappointing year by those standards, has quickly turned into one where now he's the one getting shouts at a potentially historic year. And obviously, make no mistake, a lot can change. We saw last year when Alcaraz won Wimbledon, it seemed like he was a lock to finish the year number one and potentially even get himself a historic year last year on the board with how good he was through Wimbledon. But this year, you're going to be in a place where he's played less than usual leading up to this North American hardcourt swing, even given the fact that he's playing these two events at the Olympics. And with another year of experience under his belt, he's such a great, quick learner. You would think that he's probably going to learn the lessons from last year, not allow the same type of drop-off to happen this year. And yeah, walking away from Wimbledon, I'm at a place where I'm ready to call grass his best surface. Obviously, it caters to his variety, his power. He has pretty much mastered the movement on it at this point as well. And, perhaps more importantly, I think we're getting to a place where it's established Alcaraz has the highest ceiling on tour on any court that's not indoors or Australia to this point. I think Jannik Sinner might have something to say about that this North American summer, considering, those are some pretty quick courts as well, and he has been the best hardcourt player in the world, really going back a year exactly to the day. And of course, Novak Djokovic not being at his best all year also plays a part in me being so convinced in that. But also, we're to a point where, his big match record precedes him to where if he's not at his best, more times than not, there's literally that Cincinnati final last year. He's still going to find a way, with how talented he is, with how smart he is, to navigate whatever challenges his opponents may present, as well as the deficits that his own streakiness may create. He's just that good a problem solver already. Bottom line, it's getting scary, y'all, at least for the rest of the tour. Throughout his career to this point, everything has happened so fast for him. Why not just fast track the slump to glory arc? The last year has been, what a disappointment. Did we, anoint him too quickly? Let's pump the brakes for making, quarterfinals and semifinals instead of going to finals and titles for a 6-month stretch there. What a difference a great 2 months can make. But that's all I got for this video. Again, apologies for missing Wimbledon coverage on this channel, but Olympics around the corner. Rafael Nadal tennis is back. Alcaraz doubles on the horizon. Really excited for what the rest of the season has to offer, beginning with Paris 2024. Link in the description below for our podcast on Spotify. Obviously, I should be updating you guys more about it on this channel than I have. But, in the event of me traveling, something like that, that's where you can expect less dressed up, more regular content. Just me and a couple of my friends from Cincinnati chopping it up about the game. If that interests you, hit that up. But otherwise, thank you guys again so much for watching. And of course, I will see y'all in the next one.